morning, everybody. We're so happy to see everyone out on this beautiful day. It's, the blessing curse. It's beautiful, so people don't want to be inside, but you know what? It's not pouring rain, so we're happy. Like last year, right? Welcome back to Bethany for Homecoming 2023, where our theme is Country Roads Taking Me Home. So I'm sure some of you dragged out your boots and hats and whatever else, denim, so we're happy to see everyone here this morning. I'm Angie Beto, president of the Bethany College Alumni Association, and on behalf of all of us on Alumni Council, welcome again to today's town hall with President of the college, Dr. Jamie Caridi, and Chairman of the Board of Trustees, Ken Beto. I have provided both of them with questions that were submitted by alumni from before, and of course you all received an index card where you could write further questions, so hopefully we'll have time to get through as many of them as we can today. So let's get started. Vanna or Val, do you guys have more questions for us? Ken Beto started as chair of the board 2 years ago, as he's a 1977 graduate and hails from McKinney, Texas, where he mostly plays golf when he's not working on Bethany. I know. Oh well, you know how that goes. Bethany welcomed Dr. Caridi on as our interim president in January 2021. And as someone working on the inside through council, I have to say I'm supremely grateful for his continued leadership and expertise, because I see huge progress in the last year and 9 or 10 months. So thank you for being here, Dr. Caridi, and Ken, we appreciate your leadership as well. Without any further ado, I know you guys have some opening remarks that you would like to make, so I'm not sure who's on first. Who's on first?
So welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out. They say the opposite of love and hate is not love and hate, but you just don't care. And so you care, and you're here, and I appreciate that. I wanted to start off a little bit, and there's a number of questions we're going to address as we go forward. Anything from comps to boomers and everything in between. Let's remind people that 2 years ago, the board got together in August of 2021, and we had done cash analysis of Bethany College, and we were borrowing against our endowment to cover the deficit in the operating budget. And if you look at that and say, well, at some point, then if you keep borrowing against the endowment and you're running deficits, you'll be out of business. Well, the fact was, and 2 years ago, if that pattern would have continued, the incoming freshmen would not have graduated from Bethany College because we would run out of money. So clearly a distressed institution with challenges at that point. Now, again, I want to remind folks that the way we primarily receive our revenue is for a tuition-based institution. So tuition, room, and board is our primary stream of revenue. So at that point, we did something most institutions take years to do, but we did it in a relatively short time. When I say we, I'm talking about the faculty, the staff, the trustees were involved. We did a 3-year plan. And it's called a strategic plan, but I would share it's rather operational because it needed to be done immediately. Many times you've seen plans are put together and they're elegant bound and put it on the shelf somewhere. But we needed to begin that, and we began that on January 1st, 2022. And so I would offer to you, first of all, if you haven't seen it, you can go online and get it. But this is what we're doing. This is how we're measuring ourselves going forward for the next couple of years as we go forward. And one of the driving phenomena in there is to have a balanced budget 2 years from now. And we're making progress. I think Jamie might show you some numbers, but that's it. But again, our primary revenue is around student tuition fees and room and board. Most of you know, Jamie will talk about this a little bit too, we're in the quiet phase of a capital campaign, which will be announced probably somewhere in the next few months, maybe early next year, but we will not announce that until we have a significant part of that already raised because we didn't want to miss the goal. So we're making investments to achieve the strategic plan. So if you haven't looked at it, I encourage you to do it. Question comes up, well, Jamie's interim president. What does that mean? Is there, in fact, oftentimes, 100% of the time, Jamie signs things as president. And for all intents and purposes, he is president, and the board is satisfied with what he's doing. Jamie's under contract with us, and Jamie and I talked about this, and the board's talked with Jamie. He'll be our president until he's not our president. We began a search, as you know, a year ago or 18 months ago. We had a finalist candidate. Candidate visited campus last January. And at the end of the process, and I say process, it was a very good process with visiting on campus, reference checks, everything else. Great person. But we decided he wasn't the right person for Bethany College at this time. And at that point, we renewed Jamie. Now, the question was, when I spoke to the candidate, very gracious, I called him and I said, listen, we're not going to make you an offer, and if you like, you can withdraw your name. That way, it was on you, not us. He says, Ken, I don't care, whatever works for you. But that was the situation. So it was nothing hostile, nothing wrong. It was just it wasn't the right candidate. We felt very strongly where we are right now as a distressed institution is making progress. Jamie's the person to be the leadership helm, and that's what he's doing. So we're confident in that. The board's confident in that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie because he's got some other questions and answers. But there's good numbers. I want to be clear. We have some good numbers, but if you think that people around here are celebrating this one, yes, it's a tough demographic. This liberal arts colleges. I mean, you can follow what's going on. You saw what happened to AB. There was a school in Southern West Virginia went on a business a while back. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for us. So our challenge at Bethany right now is to do a couple of things. Again, feature what we have, which is good, but also find alternative ways with enrollment numbers to cover our cash situation because we're an enrollment-based institution. So unless somebody in this room has a $15 million check, and I'm not asking for it, so no, you don't have it. If you do, God bless you. But it's hard work. It's hard work, and we're working on it right now as we speak. We stay humble. So Jamie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I would be remiss if I didn't begin by saying welcome home to so many alumni who've made the journey back to the banks of the Old Buffalo. It has been just a remarkable blessing over the course of the last 48 hours to meet and re-meet so many passionate, remarkable alumni. And we've got record numbers coming home this year. We're very pleased by that. And for those that are joining us by live stream, welcome as well. We're sorry you can't be with us in person, but we know you're with us in spirit. But we do have record numbers. And my gosh, I know many of you come back every year. Thank heavens the Lord has given us beautiful weather this year to make up for last year's challenges, right? So I wanted to give some opening remarks. Some will echo our chairman's comments, but I feel a lot of the questions that I get on a day-to-day basis from alum or just people interested in the institution, whether it be corporate leaders, government leaders, philanthropists, friends of the institution, there's a sequence and kind of a repetitiveness to the set of questions that frequently comes up. So I think I can probably address a number of the questions just right at the beginning here. And I do have a few slides. Unlike last year, I do want to share a few slides with you that I think highlight some of the key things that are on people's minds. So I want to do that. And then, of course, we will pause so we can address as many of your questions as possible. I think, by the way, before I get started, it's just really important that we have these frequent town halls. Of course, we began this last year to do it as pro forma during homecoming weekend, but I'm very grateful to the Alumni Association as well, who has been coordinating town halls for the past 18 months. We think at this time of institutional transition and institutional transformation that a frequency of dialogue with the people that love this institution the most is really important. And I hope you found those engagements, and I hope you find this engagement to be transparent. Yes, we want to tell you what is going well, but we try to be frank about what's not, too, because we certainly aren't perfect. Lord knows I'm not. I'm reminded of that because my my wife can tell me every day the ways I'm falling flat, right? So we don't stick the landing every day around here by any stretch, but you know, as it relates to the good news, we want to share that as well. But to Ken's point, we are nobody's spiking balls around here right now. We got a lot of work to do. We got to keep our heads down and just keep moving. Ken mentioned the strategic plan. Can folks see through me, or do you need me to step aside so you can see the screen?
You're good.
I'm good? Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see on the screen here, these are the 5 main objectives of the strategic plan. And I don't know if there's any surprises on this slide, but if you haven't read the whole strategic plan, it's about 18 pages long. But this is it. There's 5 key initiatives that we really said 18 months ago we need to focus on. And the board unanimously approved the plan in January of 2022. So we find ourselves right now, right around a month, 19, 20, somewhere in that, just beyond the midpoint of the strategic plan. Within the strategic plan, there's 100 activities or tactics that support these 5 objectives. And we measure that minimally every quarter with the board as to how we're doing. Right now, we're pleased to say that 55 of it's actually 99. 55 of the 99 major activities or tactics are either in progress late stage or completed. So of course, during this latter half of the strategic plan, which is a 3-year strategic plan, we are focusing on knocking those things out right now. Of course, we need to begin with academic programs. That's our raison d'etre. That's our reason for existing. And so we need to make sure we have compelling and distinctive academic programs. I know just through my conversations with all of you how high quality the programs were when you all attended. We need to make sure that remains the case today. And in many respects, it does, and in some respects, it doesn't. And we've talked about that, for example, with our education department, where we failed to meet our own expectations, as well as some of our external evaluators' expectations. So, we have to certainly pick up our game in some areas in that regard. And beyond that, though, also continue to meet the market where they're at. So that means adding programs that the labor market needs, that students are interested in, etc. I'll just give one example of that this past year. We added criminal justice as an undergraduate major. And when we did that, we wanted to add it in a way that was true to the liberal arts. You can go out there and find lots of schools that have criminal justice majors. By the way, it's one of the most popular majors in America, and we didn't have it. So we said, it's an opportunity for us, but how do we do it in a way that is reflective of Bethany's values? So when we really looked at our historical kind of values and our core principles, we designed the program in a way that is very different than other institutions. So for example, the social work and social values and the importance of kind of reformation and the opportunity for those who unfortunately have to engage the criminal justice system have an opportunity for redemption and a second stage of life, etc. We've integrated a lot of that into the program, where other programs you just don't see that. It happens to be one of our most popular majors immediately with our new student class. I think we have 15 students coming in this year that are majoring in criminal justice. So adding those new academic programs, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, are going to continue to be important. It's apropos that today we're playing a football game, so football coaches often talk about bigger, stronger, faster. And to some extent, as an institution, we need to have that mindset. We need to think bigger, we need to think stronger, and we need to move faster in some ways. And to some degree, that includes, as it relates to the creation of new academic programs. So you will certainly hear more about this over the course of the next few months and next couple of years. We'll continue to add some undergraduate programs that we think are competitive. But the graduate market is a space that we will continue to expand on. And not to the detriment or not to the shortfall of the resources of our residential undergraduate program, but in a way that complements the two. And to some extent, in most institutions where you get a graduate program right, it actually sends resources to the traditional residential program. The second item on here is about the student experience. And, we've got to be able to compete, not just with other small liberal arts schools. We have to compete with what everybody's offering out there now. And frankly, we're a little behind on that. And you can look at that in a number of different ways. The reasons we want a young person today and a family to choose a college isn't always the rubric through which they choose a college. So you can have a great academic program, but if your housing is subpar, they may not choose you. You can have a great academic program, but if you don't have the co-curriculars or extracurriculars, they may not choose you. You can have a great academic program, but if you can't demonstrate outcomes because of a strong career development office, they're probably not going to choose you. We got to pick up our game there, frankly, in a number of ways. We're starting to do that, but there's a lot more work in that regard as it relates to the strategic plan. Third item is financial strength and institutional stability. Ken had already discussed this a little bit. Just for context for everybody, in 2021, the college was running an annual deficit of about $5.5 million. On a budget of 20. Completely unsustainable. And that's why, when the chairman says our runway was short, it was short. We set out, not everything can be a North Star in a strategic plan, and not everything is about money. But there is an old saying, no money, no mission. So we have to balance the budget. And so one of the North Stars in the strategic plan is to balance the budget for 3 years. We are well on our way. We're frankly exactly where we thought we would be. The board last year approved a budget to get below $3 million deficit. We did that. In fact, FY23, which ended this last June, will probably come in just over a couple $1 million of deficit. The budget we're in now that the board approved was to get it under $2 million. They approved a $1.7 million deficit, and we're tracking right on that. Next year, our goal is will be to be below $1 million, and then we're out. We will be out. And so the college has stepped back from the brink. The runway is longer. That worry that everybody legitimately should have had about kind of existential crisis, are we going to make it next year or for 2 years, we've stepped back from that. Our runway is much longer now, probably out to about a decade to 12 years. And as soon as we balance the budget, right, it's endless, and we'll be good to go. So that's a little bit about the financials. Of course, enrollment is the major driver of that. No matter how well we do on philanthropy, even schools that kill it with philanthropy, for small private institutions, 75 to 80% of your income is still going to come, your revenue is going to come from enrollment. So we simply have to grow the enrollment. The next one, back up, is about optimizing our campus facilities. I will show a few slides about how we're doing that. 36 buildings, 1,100 acres. There's a lot of work that needs done on campus.
And as we all know, there's old buildings and real old buildings.
So, we've begun the process in a number of ways. We've begun the process because the campaign that we're in a silent phase of has been successful. And we'll show a slide on that here momentarily. The operating budget, frankly, right now cannot accommodate addressing deferred maintenance or new capital projects. So it's all coming off of fundraised dollars to address some of the needs that we have. We're hard at work on that. I think this year we're probably throwing about $5 million at our campus facilities. We'll show you a little bit about that momentarily. A lot more work to do there. And then the next one, final one, is strategic partnerships. I think in the last 18 months we've signed maybe 7 or 8 important strategic partnerships for the college. Most of those are academic partnerships. We are trying to convey to the world that you can get there from here. Our alumni, when you look at the lives you've led very successful lives, but you've led lives of significance. And in so many ways, the stories that you tell through how you've lived your life demonstrates how you can get there from here. So frankly, we got to tell your story better in our communications because that highlights that. But also we need to do that through strategic partnerships. So if a young prospective student wants to go to medical school or veterinary school, or they want to become a pharmacist, or they want to go to physical therapy school, all of which require graduate studies, their biggest worry is, am I going to get in? So we've been on a tear to sign deals where by coming here, the moment they are accepted, they know they have a guaranteed seat, provided they hold up their part of the bargain. They keep their grades up, they've got a seat. And so we're very proud of those partnerships. We've got a lot more work to do on them. We just signed a deal with St. George's University, which, by the way, was founded by a Bethany alum from the 1970s. So, and it's in the Caribbean, so you'd be surprised how many of our faculty and staff feel that they need to be on a journey to do a quality control site visit down in Grenada. But those things matter. Just a couple things as it relates to enrollment I want to show. This is where our enrollment resides today. I know when we did a public announcement about our enrollment this year, we publicly displayed the percentages of increases. And lots of people were very excited by it, and I'm told from my team that some people were suspect as to why we weren't sharing the raw data. We weren't hiding from the raw data, folks. But the truth is, there's different constituencies to which we market. The alumni is an important constituency. Our students are an important constituency. And then the world, however you want to define it, is another constituency. How we message to the world sometimes is different how we message to our alumni. It matters. Why? We didn't put our hard numbers out there. Do you know why? Because the same week we were announcing our numbers, Alderson Broaddus closed. Guess what enrollment Alderson Broaddus had? 650 students. So do you think I wanted a message in the marketplace that we're a school of 650 students? No way. No way. So there's kind of a method to our madness. It's not being insincere or disingenuous. It's just different constituencies you need different messages for. We always intended to share with our internal constituencies these numbers. And by the way, these don't become public, so people eventually find them out. But we wanted the bigger message being about our growth at this time. So these are the numbers. We've grown, since January, fall of 21, the class size was 534. Last year we hit just under 600. This year undergraduates were closer to 650. The graduates in, we're inching closer to 700. We need to be a school of at least 900 students. And we didn't pick that number just out of a hat. 900 students is important for a variety of reasons. By the way, we will break even. We'll be out of that deficit when we hit around 750 to 800 students, which we are anticipating will happen in the next year to year and a half. We might fall slightly short of that next year, but we're getting close. But 900 students is important because we're blessed as an institution to sit on 1,100 acres of natural resources, which provides our institution considerable income off of natural gas rights. Well, eventually those things run out. Now, they're not running out today, they're not running out tomorrow, but they're going to run out at some point, probably in the next 15 to 20 years. We need to set the institution up for 20, 30 years from now. So that's why 900 matters. And we will do that both building our residential campus as well as through new graduate programs and hybrid learning and things such as that. I'll just step up just for a minute because it kind of goes down in the shadow. This is the last, going back to 2010, our historical enrollments. And as you can see, in 2010 is more reflective somewhat of the 80s and 90s. Okay, so Bethany in its heyday, you hear all kinds of numbers, but as best we can tell, the high watermark for Bethany was probably at best 1,000 students in the 70s and 80s. So in 2010, it was somewhat in that range. And then you see, our hard times really fell in this red region. And if you did the average of those years, it's right around 185 students that we would average new every year. And I'm very proud of the team, the collective effort. It's hard to see down here, but this year our new student number was 277 students. And that's more reflective, right? Our goal has been to get back to those days back there. By the way, our goal next year is actually above 300 new students to enroll. And when we do that, we will be out of deficit position. Of course, we got to retain the students, but those are the sorts of classes that we need to enroll. And frankly, there's no reason we shouldn't be. You hear a lot in the marketplace about declining birth cohorts, and it's always in the media. And those things are true, but the bottom line is we need to work harder, smarter. We need to provide value to the marketplace, and if we do that, all the rest of that is just noise. We'll be fine. But we just had, and frankly, too many schools use that as an excuse as to why they didn't hit their numbers, etc. We need to bring value to families. We do that. Just a few more slides, and then we can move on to a half-hour questions. This just gives you context of how we're doing on new students. So over last year, that represents a 42% growth over the size of the class last year. And then in 2-year times, that represents a 58% growth over the class 2 years ago. So our new normal needs to be this sort of incoming class. And that's what we're trying to position ourselves for. We think we have a good strategy for next year. Student athletes are, of course, a big part of that. We know that. We're trying to put more emphasis on Greek life, to have a renaissance of Greek life back on campus. We have a new international strategy to recruit international students beyond just our men's soccer program. Frankly, it's been beautiful. They're great kids, but we can't just rely on one athletic program to enroll international students, and then some of the graduate programs, etc. Fundraising. Just for context, annually, at least in recent history, the school has raised about $2.2 to $2.5 million a year. We knew we really needed to accelerate that in order to get where we needed to get, and frankly, to address a lot of things we needed to address. So the campaign that we're in, by the way, we call it a silent phase of the campaign, worst kept secret, because we tell everybody we're in a campaign, right? So I want you all to know, hush, we're in a very silent phase of the campaign. But we announced a $20 million campaign about 15 months ago. To date, I'm very proud to report, because of your efforts, your support, we are sitting at $12.5 million in pledges and support. And I would like you to all give yourselves a round of applause for that. That means we are officially at 60% of the campaign. So because of your support, we now move to a public phase in the next few months. So now we're really coming after you all. And by the way, this isn't all off of donor and alumni pledges. And by the way, I should break for a minute. There's many trustees in this room. I mean, you talk about time, talent, and treasure. We have a phenomenal board here. And at the risk of people saying he's just blowing smoke at the board because he works for the board, they are killing themselves for this institution. And they are giving hard of their time and talents, but my gosh, they are giving of their treasure too. So a big portion of this is because of their philanthropy, as well as a number of other friends and alumni of the institution. This number, as of 48 hours ago, was sitting at $10.5 million. But I'm pleased to report that we launched a pretty sophisticated government relations strategy in the last year. Bethany deserves the resources of state and federal government. We have a lot to be proud of, and we have a lot to offer. I look at people like Bob Rosh and others that have given their lives to support this nation at the federal level. Why shouldn't we get the resources that other people get? So we have a very active government relations strategy. It takes a lot of time. I know you'll find this crazy. Washington is kind of a bureaucracy and works very slow. But on Wednesday, we were informed that we are being given a $2.2 million Title III federal grant to support student success and retention at Bethany College. So, we also, because of Senator Manchin and Senator Capito's support, we are right now, they call it in black and white, for another $1 million in the appropriations request that has been supported by the Senate Appropriations Committee to support online and hybrid learning. We're almost there. They tell us we're about 80% of the way there. There's just a few more hoops. Those hoops include the Senate and the House agreeing on an appropriations bill and the President signing it. So other than that, we're good. But we'll hear more about that later this year. But we think we'll continue to have success on this number. I want to talk about facilities just briefly. I hope you can attend some of the ribbon cuttings this afternoon. But you're busy. There's a lot going on. So in the event you can, we just want to bring you up to speed on a few of the facility updates. The first thing you see here is our Kirkpatrick Science Lab. You know, our science is one of our biggest programs, has been forever, for Bethany College. I was sitting with class of 93 last night, and most of them were biochem majors, just extraordinary women. It's remarkable. We have great professors, a phenomenal program, and my heavens, our facilities do not represent it. I mean, they are behind. They are behind, and we need help. Fortunately, we've begun the process because of your support and the support of some foundations. We just completed a $500,000 renovation to the Kirkpatrick Lab. So we have a state-of-the-art science lab that we'll be cutting the ribbon on this afternoon. Dr. Anna Edlin will be on hand. She is a rock star. She's really shy. It's hard to see her joy. Completely lying. And we're very proud of this. It's critically important. STEM is and will continue to be a major driver of our enrollment. This is just a few of the shots of what the lab will look like, and so we're very proud of it. And the architecture, the stained glass window, and keeping the integrity of the historic buildings but being very cutting edge, it's that's a challenge. You really got to stick the landing on that, but I think they did. I think you'll agree. We're very proud, and of course, I don't think there's anybody in this room that hasn't been touched by the halls. Our psychology program, next to science, they compete to be our biggest major. I was shocked my first year here that of our 100 graduates, a third of them were psychology graduates. So making sure our faculty are at the top of their game and our facilities are at the top of their game is really important. We are very proud to honor the legacy and contributions of the halls, and in this case, it's named after John Hall. Of course, Deborah Hall's been phenomenal as well. And we'll be cutting the ribbon on that later today as well. Thank you all for your support. This is just an image of what that lab looks like. Harlan Hall. So it broke many of our hearts when the core of campus in many respects was shuttered 2 years ago. We had Harlan Hall closed down. Phillips Hall, by and large, closed down. And it just breaks hearts, right? It's unconscionable. And a lot of the stories we hear are related to those facilities. I was very grateful to the board when they said, let's get moving here and get these buildings lively again. So the board supported a $1 million renovation to Harlan Hall. We critically needed it. Our strategy is to bring all of our freshmen back to main campus. And that's the goal. The CVs are great, but a freshman year experience matters. The tenderness, the love, the support they need, it's just different than upperclassmen. So Harlan Hall is housed by freshmen, men and women. Moreland Hall will probably likely be next, at least part of it. We'll bring back that for housing. We'd love to get the upstairs of Phillips back for housing. Frankly, we need a sizable contribution to get that done just because it's a historic building, but that's the goal. Harlan Hall is a really cool place right now. This is just the basement of Harlan Hall, but so it's usually not a slide you want to show of, hey, look at our washers and dryers, folks, but now the other students are like, hey, why don't you hit in our hall? Because it's a very nice hall. The only thing we were a little wigged out by was it was completely ready for the freshmen when they came back, except the blinds hadn't arrived yet. So for the first week, we were reminded that the blinds hadn't come in yet, and we put a rush on the blinds. So, but these are just a few of the images. If you have a chance, get over there today to take a peek. Greek Hill. Let me just speak to Greek Hill. And Angie, I promise I'm not running out the clock here. I'm coming to an end. Greek Hill, the bottom line is most of you here have memories of Greek Hill. All those houses were built in 1972. I think they were called temporary housing, Mr. Chairman, at the time?
I know nothing.
Temporary housing 51 years later. The truth is, and this is going to... it won't surprise you, but it also tugs on the heartstrings, that they're on a short shelf life, folks. We had an architect come in, take a hard look at them. For us to put money to truly renovate all of them, it just doesn't make sense. And so they probably have about a 3 to 5 year lifespan. So what we want to do is we want to provide for the students up there now, give them a high quality experience, continue to invest in them to the point that it makes sense, but not to overinvest to the point that it makes no sense. So one of the things we did is we said we're going to paint them all, and we're going to let the students pick their color. So every Greek got to pick their color, and I just said, they got to pick one of the colors in their color schemes for Greeks, but I don't care which one they pick. So if it looks like a blazing rainbow up there, so be it. Who's been up on Greek Hill? It looks like a rainbow up there.
San Francisco has the painted ladies. We have.
Yeah, and the kids love it. I mean, the students just absolutely love it. So, but we have to find a long-term solution out for Greek housing, and we're actively discussing that right now. Phillips Hall, and this is where I'll finish and then turn the floor back over to Ange. Phillips Hall, our most historic building on campus. We have begun the process of reopening Phillips Hall. What you see here is, of course, the historic lounge. We have decided it's a gem of campus, so we want to welcome all new prospective families at that beautiful lobby. So we're going to build an enrollment welcome center on the first floor. This is what that lounge, this is the new furniture that's going in there. And then in the main lobby, there's, they're really working hard on a kind of state-of-the-art welcome center there. We'll probably move career development there as well. Families need to begin with the end in mind, so when they show up, they know that we're thinking of outcomes at the beginning. This is just another angle. And then this is the ground floor, the basement. Renner 2, as some of you know it. We are investing $500,000 here for an esports laboratory. It was supposed to be done for this weekend. As if sometimes we can't win for losing. There was a lightning strike on campus 3 weeks ago. Guess where it hit? The transformer right outside of Phillips Hall. So nearly killed some of our staff that operate in Cramblin Hall. So praise God nobody was hurt, but it blew out all the power. And so the entire transformer needs to be replaced. So this isn't done yet. It'll be done in about 3 to 4 weeks. It is a hot thing. I'll bet half of you in the audience say, hey, that esports thing sounds cool. And the other half of you is saying, what the hell is esports? But just trust me, it's a big thing right now, and we already have a lot of traction on it. We have other things going on, but at this point I think I need to pass the floor back over to Ange, and we'll entertain any questions.
You guys get the hot seat now. Trust me when I say, okay, we have gotten some questions from our audience today. Could you please discuss the reasons why the education department has been terminated, and is there a chance that will be reinstated?
Thanks for the softball to begin. First of all, the education department is not terminated. Now, could there be a point in the future where we do sunset the education program? Look, that is a possibility, and I'm not going to tell you anything, but it's straight. Right now, the education program is on a teach-out. By the way, that wasn't our choice. That was the choice of the regulators. So we are highly regulated when it comes to teacher certification. I would go so far as to say over-regulated when it comes to teacher certification. Any teachers in the audience here? Okay, so I don't need to tell you. We need to have high standards, right, for teaching, but there's a massive teaching crisis in America. Anywhere you look, the number of people going into teaching is crashing. No surprise, we don't pay enough. We expect you to be top of your game. You need to be social workers. It's a highly politicized environment right now, and then we're shocked as a country that the people don't want to go into teaching. And it's highly regulated, so it's hard for students to become teachers. So first of all schools have to pass a high bar. Our institution, separate from the fact there might be some over-regulation, we created any number of self-inflicted wounds. So a lot of this is on this institution. We frankly did not meet the standard, and to some extent, we deserve what we got, and I hate to say that, but both the Department of Education in West Virginia and AQEP, which is our specialized accreditor, said, you're not moving forward. You don't meet the standard. And I think you would at least all agree with me that if we don't meet the standard, we shouldn't be in the business. I mean, that's duping students. And so we're doing the right thing. Any student that was here as an education major
and passed their initial teacher certification exam during the first year is still in the program. We are absolutely able to teach them out, and we still have all the education faculty we had last year. There's not been a single position eliminated. We also have a master's in education. That's important to this institution. It's not a teacher certification program, but it's important for us in a number of ways, not the least of which is a lot of our graduate assistants are in that program. And the board and the management team is reevaluating this. In the meantime, we have struck a deal with West Liberty University, both with education and nursing. And that required the approval of the federal government, the West Virginia Department of Education, both institutions, a number of other people, the NCAA as well. So students can come here, be a 4-year athlete, but also have a pathway to become a teacher and to become a nurse. There's still a lot more details with that arrangement that need worked out. We have not made a final decision yet. It'll probably come at the May board meeting. The board ultimately will make a decision on that, my recommendation. But we're still studying it, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you. What is now the most popular major at Bethany?
Psychology and biology, and sport management is the third one. So those three are highly popular majors at our institution. Business is also strong. There's a couple different tracks in business though, so sometimes that dilutes. But when you add up all the business, that's a pretty big major as well. But we're still known for the programs we were known for 10, 15, 20 years ago. Social work is also an incredibly successful major here. From a marquee standpoint, social work is our highest quality program probably on campus as determined by outside accreditors. It is top-notch, second to none. And so that's a very popular major here as well.
Oh, that's great. So you touched on this somewhat before with the criminal justice, but what is the newest course offering at Bethany?
So we added majors, undergraduate. We added undergraduate major in criminal justice, in healthcare management, and in digital marketing this past year. Criminal justice of the three is absolutely the most popular. We knew it was going to be. Healthcare management is important because we can build off our strengths already, and of course the healthcare field is very popular. And then digital marketing is a build off of our communications department, which historically has been very successful for us. We need to spend more time and energy on our comm department. I think we collectively internally know it's time for institutional renewal in some different ways in that area, just because that field has changed dramatically. Right now, our faculty is working on a bachelor's in game development. We already have an esports minor. Game development is connected with computer science, and that computer science field, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, will continue to expand. Also, cybersecurity is likely to be an offshoot of that as well. So those are some of the major.
Jamie, do you have any statistics on how effective the graduate programs are now that we've instituted a couple, and what percentage of students are staying on campus? That was part of the goal, right?
So the graduate programs we have an MBA, 4+1. We have a master's in education. And then our faculty has just passed, although it's not approved by the Higher Learning Commission, a master's in sport management, a 4+1. They've been successful to the point of keeping fourth years here for a fifth year and meeting our needs for graduate assistants. We have about 30 graduate assistants on this campus. And if we didn't have those graduate assistants, we would need 30 more full-time employees, which we can't afford right now. So it adds a lot of value. Do we have a large paying graduate student population? We do not. It is an enormous opportunity for us, and that's why we've had lots of conversations with the board, and most of our graduate programs, including the ones we have now, are being not necessarily instead of, but in addition to things like the 4+1. We will have hybrid and online programs at the graduate level. I hear from alumni all the time that had just phenomenal experiences here at the undergraduate level. And there's a ton of alumni that would love to get a graduate degree from this institution. They can't because they can't come up here. Or teach. So we anticipate expanding our graduate programs, but the modality is going to matter. And and that's going to take off substantially in the next year.
So would you consider that low-hanging fruit that you're working to address?
Well, it's low-hanging fruit by way of opportunity. It's not low-hanging fruit by way of, a lot of schools think they could easily get into graduate programs and online learning very easily by just flipping a switch. You really need to know what you're doing on that. And so we've brought in a team and really trying to make sure we got to stick the landing when we do it. We're looking, our goal is in the summertime, at latest in the fall, some of it's based upon regulators, to come out with an online MBA and an online Master's in Sport Management as our first two programs, provided our faculty and the HLC fully approve it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the C word, comps. Which one of you wants to address
We
that?
decided to eliminate comps. Pay attention. Thank you.
It's probably a current student.
Seriously, I'll let Jamie answer. It's relatively, comps is part of Bethany culture and everything else. This is 2023. As we said, we're offering graduate programs now, which means we have a summer term, which tightens the schedule a bit. But we have comps. Comps is part of Bethany. Many of you took comps in this very room. You probably shuddered when you walked into the room thinking about it. But Jamie, you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Let me ask the exact question.
Sure.
The question is about the rationale for the change of schedule for spring comps. I'm not sure there has been a change of schedule, but you can address that.
Yeah, so I'll speak directly to that first and then talk about a few other things with comps. First of all, I'm probably the only one in this room that didn't have to pass comps. So I'm not going to be the guy that ever says we should or shouldn't have comps. That's a bigger discussion for the board. However, there's some practical matters associated with it. So number one, our creditors require a certain amount of seat time. So like it or not, most of higher education operates on seat time. That's why every degree in America at the undergraduate level is 4 years. Now, frankly, I think that's nuts. If you can achieve a degree faster and show competencies faster and families can get out cheaper, good for them. But that's not how the world works right now. So you are required to have kids in class a certain amount of time. If you don't, you're violating accreditor standards. During COVID, the accreditors let go of all those standards because they just wanted all the schools to survive. Last year, for example, our spring semester was 14 weeks long. The accreditors at the beginning of last year said COVID rules are no longer in play. So we had a 14-week spring semester last year. It's not allowed. It's not allowed. Now, people understood it. People still have COVID on their minds, right? So schools are still trying to rebound. So we have to figure out a way where the student seat time is met, that faculty and students have proper time for finals without that being disrupted, and then that there's dignity and sanctity to the comp experience. And how we achieve all three of those while students currently, many of you in this audience didn't have a ton of students around for comps. You had your families. But now that it... No?
You had other seniors with a quart of beer waiting for you.
There you go.
Walked out. Families were not part of it.
Families weren't part of it. So today, there are a lot of students that hang out for comps. We're trying to figure that out, but it's a logistics issue. It's not like, and I understand, I've been told that, there was a post on, I guess there's a website some of you follow.
Facebook page.
And, like all those posts, there's some truth and then there's some just, misguidedness or lack of communication. We're trying to, and frankly, we had already been working with student leadership to figure this out. But what I will tell you is we're not going to violate accrediting standards. The other thing that's getting difficult is the good news is that the college is attracting more and more transfer students. So this year, in our new student number, we had 30 transfer students come in. Now, historically, the school has usually only had 3 to 4 transfer students a year. So the comp experience is supposed to cover a 4-year body of work. How's that fair to a transfer student?
Good point.
Somebody needs to explain that to me. But the faculty have to figure this out. And it's not me, the faculty have to figure this out. As we have strategic partnerships where a student can come here for 3 years, save a year of funding on their education, which, by the way, all families want right now, and go on to medical school and complete their first year of medical school while it's considered their fourth year here, how does that student come? How do they come? So these are just legitimate questions. It's not me making an argument for us getting out of the business of comps. I will not make that decision. I'm saying the faculty have to work hard on this, and the board will ultimately, may have to make some decisions around some of these as we grow. When we get into online learning, how does a non-traditional student from Texas that has an experience, how do they come? It's just a more complex world we live in, and so we just need to be real about that.
What I hear you saying is it's much more complicated than perhaps we see on a Facebook page, much more nuanced, right? A lot of information we don't all have, all the details for. And which is more important, having a diploma that really means something, or having, for lack of accreditation, people at our comps?
Because, by the way, we have been already, for the students themselves, because the purest argument is the one the students are making, is we want some people to be around.
Sure.
And I get that. We're trying to make that happen. What we've worked out with student government, which are the elected leaders of the students, is that we're going to allow for anybody comping to have a few of their friends stay that aren't comping. Now, I hope they don't blow it, right, by some shenanigans. But at any rate, we're going to allow them to stay so they can have
Sounds like a
friends.
compromise.
Yeah, so we're going to work it out.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that question. Let's talk about student retention. That question comes up over and over. What does the student retention look like now that you have those numbers? And what are you doing to understand the reasons for students leaving?
That's a great question, and frankly, this is kind of the get real, get love's moment we have to have. And we talked a lot about this at our board meeting this week. The good news is our enrollment's growing. To do that, and the good news is our budget is getting better. We had a strategy threefold. One, increase the head count. Two, we need to do better with our financial aid packaging. And three, we need to retain the students we have. We were very successful on two of those three. The one we were not successful on was student retention. And so our freshman sophomore retention rate is below where it needs to be. It's mid to high 60s, which is frankly where the school's hovered at for several years. And we had a couple years during COVID where it actually went up into the 70s. The grant we just got from the feds is called a Student Success Grant. It's all around student retention. So what does that mean? We're going to build a Student Success Center in the library, so there's another renovation project coming. The grant's funding 3 full-time student success specialists, which will be advisors to students. And then frankly, the demographic of who we recruit, I'm proud that the incoming class, the quality is, even though we're increasing headcount, we haven't given up on quality. The high school GPA is actually increasing for the school. Standardized tests have kind of gone away in higher ed, so we no longer have that to assess student abilities. Gender matters on this question. We need more women at the institution. The incoming class, while we're proud of it for a number of reasons, it's 70% men and 30% women.
Wow.
And that's because of sports, okay? And we need to attract more women to the institution. We have some specific strategies around that. Next year, we've announced the addition of acrobatic and tumbling and women's wrestling, specifically targeted at driving female enrollment. We need academic programs that attract women. Women retain better than men. It's just the truth. I mean, the stats don't lie, and it's a real factor.
Is that partly because women tend to be more relationship-driven, or?
Women tend to be better students. They are more engaged with their institutions. If you look at any institution, student clubs and organizations, they're generally led by the women these days. So
Girls, right.
If you have study abroad programs, I've run lots of study abroad programs, you'll have 15 women go and 2 men. Sports is a little different thing. Men will engage in sports, and then frankly, asking for help. Women are better at asking for help. If you look at a counseling center, 70% of people that go to a counseling center are women. Men have a harder time asking for help, and so we're trying to break through those barriers.
Terrific. Okay, switching gears as we're getting short on time. What is the nature of the relationship of the college to the Disciples of Christ Christian Church? And at the present time, or in the future of Bethany College, what does that relationship look like?
Our relationship with the church is a good relationship. We're affiliated with the Disciples of Christ Christian Church. We have significant board members that are leaders of the church. The church has been creditors of ours historically. When we were in down times before we got the USDA loan, they were providing us loans. And right now, actually, part of our endowment is invested in part of the investment group in the church. That being said, we are not an evangelical school. We're a faith-based school, but we welcome everybody of all faiths to Bethany. We don't discriminate on faith, or it's about, as students you probably represented too. We're about as low key as you can get in that space. But our relationship with the church is important to them. We're the founding location of the church. Became the mansion, of course, you're familiar with. Also, you may or may not know that the archives from the church are located here in Bethany, West Virginia. So it's a good relationship. We encourage it. We work with the church, and I would say it's a good partnership, and leave it at that. And we have some folks here if you want to talk to. I see Janet Long's here, longtime board member, Bethany alum, and a leader in the church herself. That Alvin would be here today, but he pretended to play lacrosse at the field. But our keys on our trustees. So it's a good relationship. It's a healthy relationship. We're proud of the relationship. I'll leave it at that.
And I'll just add briefly, some of you the good news is we're getting more national media as an institution right now. The challenge sometimes is they don't always report spot on. So some of you may have seen an article that came out that said, evangelical colleges in America have enrollment going up. And Bethany was extensively covered in that article. The good news is we're being covered nationally. Who would have thought, right? 2 years ago we'd be getting this national coverage. At not one point in the interview was the word evangelical ever mentioned. The national, what was the publication? Christianity Today, which, by the way, is the leading Christian publication in America. We had no idea that was going to be the headline. And I have a healthy self-awareness. When I was asked to be the president, you all thought, you just hired Pat Falwell or Donald Trump to come in as your president. And, that's not my job.
Remember that?
Yeah, that's not my job. And so, my job is to honor the history, tradition, and faith of this institution, the Disciples of Christ. And we will absolutely do that.
You know what they say, there is no such thing as bad publicity. So we'll go with that, right? Last question of the day. And the questions that we don't get to, I know this comes from an alum. I know Dean and others are working on a Downtown Bethany initiative to enhance the college experience. How is that coming along?
Was that Dean's question, by the way?
I would never tell.
Dean's in the audience.
No, it wasn't.
We don't want you to answer because we don't have feedback.
Look, we really haven't gotten to this yet. This is an
Okay.
important, but it's worth speaking to. The renaissance of town. Where the college goes, so goes the town. Where the town goes, so goes the college. The town needs a renaissance. We know it. I think of the movie It's a Wonderful Life. There's the two scenes, right? There's